How would I describe Star Wars Rebels? Well, it's rather simple. Dave Filoni and the creative team didn't put much thought into it, and it shows right from the start. For that reason, and so many more, this video won't be the start of a series. It'll have to be a diagnosis of why this show doesn't work within the wider canon. To emphasize that, we need to start off with one word. What could it be? Oh right, it's tone. Rebels takes place in between Revenge of the Sith and Rogue One, so what would anyone think that it's about? Keeping hope alive in the face of impossible odds? The political problems that come with building a democratic insurgency? The horrors of totalitarian governance? Nope, that's actually Andor. Rebels is more of a smiley, happy-go-lucky fun time, and that's where all of its problems come from. With the exception of Grand Admiral Thrawn, the Empire is just too stupid to handle what the rebellion throws at them, which cheapens the original trilogy and undermines the threat that they pose. More on that later. We need to focus on the characters. There are characters in this show, right? I can easily say that because the writing staff confused the mandate of making characters easily digestible with doing virtually nothing to develop them. Consider the relationship between Hera and Kanan, if you could even call it that. This is the core of their characterization, but the obvious indicators of a romance aren't really there. Now sure, we get a few terms of endearment and this conversation near the end of Season 2.
Whatever you're facing, I wanted us to face it together.
We'll see each other again.
But the trouble is that this could be seen as non-romantic because no one really developed it properly beforehand. Oh, but there's a love confession in Season 4, Kanan dies, and we learned that they were getting it on to the point where they had a son? What about Zeb, you may ask? Well, he's the Heavy who has a secret homeworld, but there's one thing that sticks out like a sore thumb.
Carabast.
Creative swear words can be fun. With that said, it's important to develop more than one. As for Ezra and Sabine, I think I understand why the Ahsoka show had to outright tell us that Ezra saw Sabine as his sister. That's nowhere to be found in Rebels. Hell, these two characters aren't really developed on an individual basis either. Ezra's character arc is basically a mix of should I be good or evil, and can I trust a guy who looks like a demon? That would make sense if he was kind of alone, but why do Kanan and Ahsoka seem barely concerned about Maul's influence in Season 2 and beyond? And yes, Sabine stretches credibility because of all of the things that she can do as a young adult. She's skilled at hand-to-hand, a crack shot, a demolitions expert, an artist, a pilot, and an engineer. What's next? Is she going to be able to use the Force with virtually no training whatsoever? And last, but certainly not least, Chopper is Chopper. Anyway, let's explore some choice episodes, and we'll start with Season 1. Rise of the Old Masters is a prime example of how the morals of these stories can ring hollow. In the opening, Kanan does exercises with Ezra. That may seem perfectly normal, except for the fact that they're standing on the ghost while it's in flight. Zeb doesn't pay much attention to safety, and it gets even dumber when Kanan hands Ezra his lightsaber. For some reason, the throwing of old plastic bottles seems like good practice, even though they repeatedly knock Ezra back. Why? Oh. To make matters worse, Ezra falls off the ghost. Sure, he's saved by Kanan, but then he gets berated for failing. These characters kinda sound like they're stupid. But wait, after our mains get out of an obvious trap, Kanan actually figures that he has to start with the basics on the ground. Woo. It's not all bad. However, the fact that I have to skip ahead to Path of the Jedi should tell you something. As I said previously, our leads only get a small amount of character work, and this is an important episode for Ezra. When he enters the Jedi temple that just so happens to be on Lothal, we see that he has to deal with some emotional trauma. He doesn't want to lose Kanan, but his perception of the others is even worse. Deep down, Ezra fears that Hera is just keeping him around because he's useful, Zeb doesn't care at all, and Sabine just pities him because he's a little boy. even though he's not that much younger than she is. Whatever. Once Ezra overcomes the hallucinations, he gets a pep talk from Yoda. Although Ezra is angry, fearful, and vengeful, he ultimately decides to help others instead of himself, and he receives a Kyber crystal because of that. Unfortunately, the story takes a dive once again with Vision of Hope. This episode focuses on a dissident senator named Gul Travis who has been routinely hacking into the Imperial Holonet. Wait, why would a dissident be able to hack into a state media network with no repercussions? He must be a bad guy. Hera knocks him out, and the crew gets away anyway. The same thing can be said about the finale due to the lax security, the death of the Grand Inquisitor, and the easy escape. Your mileage may vary, of course, but it doesn't feel like there are any consequences here. Oh, by the way, Dave Filoni's waifu is here too. Woo. In many ways, Season 2 is much like The Mandalorian Season 3. The first 2 episodes are pretty good, the last 2 are okay, and the middle bunch are not much to write home about. The Siege of Lothal is pretty much entirely carried by Darth Vader and Ahsoka Tano. The vast majority of this 2-parter demonstrates how Vader is a one-man army, and it's a little disturbing for Ahsoka to discover who he really is. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for what comes next. Kanan was a victim of Order 66, but you wouldn't know it by his token reaction to the clones that are in the Lost Commanders. He should be extremely nervous around them and have to learn how to get over that, shouldn't he? Never you mind, there are 2 incompetent Inquisitors to deal with. On the other hand, a princess on Lothal is okay. It's nice to see Leia again, and the idea of stealing ships from Rebel sympathizers might ward off some suspicion, for a little while anyway. Whiplash ensues with the Honorable Ones. This is an episode where Agent Kallus and Zeb are stranded with a bunch of monsters. They survive and part ways, which compels Kallus to consider defection because he has no friends. I think that this episode undercuts what makes totalitarianism so disturbing. The Sith might not have friends or loved ones, but does that really mean that their underlings don't? And of course, there's Twilight of the Apprentice. Supposedly, our heroes are looking for a means to destroy the Sith, so who should show up but an Inquisitor? Ezra gets separated from Ahsoka and Kanan, and who should show up right beside him but Maul himself? Does Ezra even try to push back against Maul's dark side ideas? Absolutely not. The 2 of them find a Sith holocron with no problems whatsoever. And then, helicopter lightsabers become a thing. A big, goofy, ridiculous thing. Everyone fights it out, but Ezra can't kill one of the Inquisitors. That's nice, I guess. As they move up, Maul reveals his true plan. The temple that they're scaling is a super weapon of some kind, and Ezra has activated it. I'm not really sure how Kanan survived Maul's blinding, though. Oh, by the way, Vader is here too. Ezra can only hold him off for 5 seconds before Ahsoka intervenes. It's a tense moment and...
I need a lot more training.
Stop talking. For some reason, the temple starts to collapse when Ezra and Kanan pull the holocron. Ahsoka and Vader fight it out as the temple explodes, so our mains have no choice but to escape. Wait, everyone survived? How are the writers gonna explain their way out of that one? Season 3 is a little bit better because of Grand Admiral Thrawn, but it's also not. The show generates a bit of interest with Ezra's anger and steps into shadow, but it fails to capitalize on it. The rest of the crew is weirded out when Ezra mind controls a walker pilot and turns him against his comrades. However, that is never really brought up again. Never mind the fact that the Holocrons of Fate opens up a storyline that doesn't match the rest of the Disney saga. If we put aside Maul's shenanigans, it turns out that the secret to destroying the Sith is on Tatooine, except that it isn't because of the rise of Skywalker. Wedge is in this show too, that might keep happening. We have to skip ahead to an Inside Man to get more significant developments. It turns out that the Empire has been pressing civilians into industrial work, and they don't like that. Although Thrawn ruthlessly clamps down on the sabotage, there's a bit of a problem.
Agent, victory and defeat are often determined by the smallest detail.
What? What's going on? Why does it sound like Thrawn is about to stumble over and fall asleep? I don't know if it's the audio mix or the direction in certain takes, but it's gotta be one of those two. Oh, by the way, Agent Kallus is a spy. I guess that one speech that Zeb gave him worked out rather well. Once Kanan and Ezra plot their escape, they knock out their new friend and make their way out of the factory. Apparently, the Empire is working on a secret fighter project, but we won't get much information on that until later. Ghosts of Geonosis is a two-parter featuring Saw Gerrera, and the story doesn't really make sense in terms of the wider saga. To demonstrate this, let's consider a question. What will the New Republic think when they learn that the Empire wiped out a sentient species? They would be incredibly hawkish and anti-fascist, wouldn't they? We can't exactly worry about that, though. Thrawn found a way to narrow down the location of the Rebel base, which makes quite a bit of sense. He sent out 94 probe droids, and one of them got sabotaged. Uh-oh. With that said, we have to consider Mandalore for some reason, and wait, Sabine built weapons that the Empire used against the planet? How old is she again? I guess that Sabine was able to patch things up with her mom, though. Oh well. Through Imperial Eyes gets us back to the main plot with Kallus and Thrawn, but it's a little goofy. The rebels think that Kallus is in danger, so they send Ezra and the droids in to get him out. The problem is that this puts them on a collision course with Thrawn. Luckily, Kallus has a plan to save himself. He palms Lieutenant List's code cylinder and places some suspicion elsewhere. After that, our heroes head over to Thrawn's office and replace the rebel planet with a decoy. Ezra, Kanan, and the rebels make their escape while Kallus pins everything on Lieutenant List. And then it gets goofy. Thrawn figures out that Ezra's helmet was drawn on by Sabine, so Kallus is actually the spy. On the plus side, Mon Mothma actually finds the guts to openly say that she's a rebel. I wonder if she'll go back on that in time. By the way, Chopper gets hacked by the ISB temporarily, and Obi-Wan winds up killing Maul in a one-off because original trilogy. We need to get back to the main story though. 0 Hour is the two-part finale, and I think I can sum it up rather quickly because it's almost entirely action. Kallus tries to warn the rebels of an oncoming attack, but is captured by Thrawn. The rebel fleet winds up getting curb-stomped, so Commander Sato has to die to get Ezra out to the Mandalorians. A ground battle ensues with mechs galore. The Mandalorians decide to help, and they wind up attacking another interdictor cruiser. Thrawn is just about to overwhelm the rebels on the ground, but he gets stopped by the Deus Ex Machina known as the Bendu. Kallus and the remaining rebels escape, but it feels kind of cheap. Anyway, don't think about it. It's time for Season 4. For some reason, everyone but Hera left the rebellion to help out Clan Ren in Heroes of Mandalore, but there's a problem. Sabine's dad has been imprisoned by the Empire and they need to get him out. Oh, by the way, Hera and Kanan are flirting. Let's just throw that in. The rescue is pretty tensionless until we learn that the Empire perfected Sabine's weapon, but Sabine's mom and brother survived, so whatever. At the very least, Bo-Katan and Ezra shine when they blow up some ties. That's cool. With that said, Bo-Katan is enraged at Sabine until she learns this.
I was young. It was a challenge and I was arrogant.
How young were you, Sabine? 10? Sabine rallies some other Mandalorians by pointing out that her weapon can destroy armies. Wait, that seems like it'd be a war winner against the Empire. The team invades a Star Destroyer. While the ship is cleared, Sabine and Bo-Katan find the weapon just as it is activated. Gar Saxon enters and gloats, which gives Sabine just enough time to turn the electricity against the Empire.
Will the future of Mandalore be one of honor or cowardice?
I'm sorry, do people seriously think that there's an honorable way of taking a life? This weapon can wipe out Imperial forces while leaving civilians untouched. Who wouldn't use it? Oh wait, the original trilogy has to happen. I forgot. Anyway, Bo-Katan gets the Darksaber. I hope she doesn't lose it. The rest of the season is all about the fight on Lothal. There's also a crossover with Rogue One, but
So long as our allies in the Senate have hope of a peaceful resolution to this conflict.
I've been called a traitor for speaking out against a corrupt galactic Senate.
So long as our allies in the Senate have hope of a peaceful resolution to this conflict.
For too long, I've watched the heavy hand of the Empire strangle our liberties.
So long as our allies in the Senate have hope of a peaceful resolution to this conflict.
We will not rest until we bring an end to the Empire.
So long as our allies in the Senate have hope of a peaceful resolution to this conflict.
Mon Mothma is an idiot. She openly called out the Emperor as a tyrant. Does she really think that he's just going to let her live? Anyway, our crew infiltrates Lothal in preparation for an oncoming attack on a TIE Defender factory. There are some nice moments here and there.
You could always see me.
Where was this earlier on? The battle begins in the sewers. Our crew is picked up by Ryder Azadi, and they just so happen to find a loose TIE Defender parked at a small base. Sabine wants to get the flight recorder. However, Thrawn and Governor Pryce just so happen to show up, so our rebels steal the ship itself. It doesn't work out all that well. Ezra and Sabine are rescued by a magic wolf, but the Empire figures out where the rebels are. Thankfully, Hera and Kanan get a kiss out of it. That's nice. As Hera makes a break for Yavin 4 with the flight recorder, the Empire drives the rest of the crew into the hills. Ezra comes across more wolves that have teleportation powers. After our mains bump into an old friend one more time, the rebels launch their attack on Lothal. The ground team is able to make some headway against the anti-air defenses, but the strike ends in disaster. Hera, Mart, and Chopper are shot down over the capital, and it all gets worse when Hera is captured by Thrawn. As Governor Pryce tortures our Twi'lek, Kanan, Ezra, and Sabine fly in on gliders. Hera's loopiness is very sweet and funny.
I hate your hair.
But there's not much time for that. They need to glide out of there. Everyone converges on a fuel depot and...
I love you.
Oh nuts, one of them is definitely dead. Sure enough, an AT-AT delivers the killing blow to Kanan Jarrus, and the Empire's fuel supply. If nothing else, I love the fact that Doom is an episode that is entirely driven by character moments. While Thrawn is absolutely enraged at Governor Pryce, Hera and the others are sick with grief.
Why did I wait so long to tell him?
We needed more of these character moments. Oh, Kanan might be helping out through a Lothwolf? Huh. Apparently, the Jedi Temple is in danger, so the crew rides off to a massive dig site. Ezra and Sabine disguise themselves and find a way to activate the temple, which leads to the world between worlds. What's with the owl? All of a sudden, Ezra sees Ahsoka during her duel with Vader and pulls her through to where he is. After a few moments of exposition, mostly about the owl, Ezra suddenly gets the bright idea to save Kanan. Except that the act would create a time paradox. Ezra has to let him go. Anyway, don't think about it for too long. Emperor Palpatine is trying to intrude. How? Oh. Of course, everyone escapes and the portal is sealed. Hera has to rally the clones for a final attack, but Azadi supposedly betrayed the rebels. Or did he? Is it Wolf Ex Machina time? I think it's Wolf Ex Machina time. Governor Pryce is captured, but the rebels have to take the capital. The series finale is all about that. However, there's just one problem. Our heroes want to recall all of the Imperial forces and fly them away in a giant dome. Thrawn appears overhead and opens fire because the rebels forgot to secure the shield generator. Ezra has no choice but to surrender to Thrawn, and he's brought before a holocall with the Emperor. Meanwhile, Mart carries out a special request on Ezra's behalf. Back on Thrawn's ship, Ezra faces some temptation. Sheev wants to give him his parents back, but it doesn't work. The rebels wind up taking the shield generator room, so Thrawn's bombardment doesn't work at all. That means that we get some whales to take the edge off. Wait, how did Thrawn and Ezra survive hyperspace with a bunch of broken windows? That seems like an odd choice. The rebels launch the dome and blow it up while they escape, effectively liberating Lothal. Or have they? I mean, there's no reason why the Emperor would just allow them to sit there.
The attack we all anticipated never came.
Oh, that's incredibly convenient. So, that's Star Wars Rebels. While the show has some good ideas and interesting episodes, I think that it ultimately falls short because it has very little to say. As I said earlier, Star Wars is supposed to be for all ages, but that's no reason to shy away from rich personalities, nuanced plots, or even some adult jokes. Sci-fi fans deserve the best that storytellers can give, so don't be afraid to demand that here, there, and everywhere. Thanks for watching. If you liked that, there's more where that came from, so be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. If you'd like to support the channel more directly, be sure to check out the links in the description. And of course, why not keep watching? There's a Star Wars playlist here, and some choice videos here. Keep your head up, and I'll see you next time.